Anti-Corruption Commission. What Sophia Nuna spoke to Wako earlier today. Listening.
So let me ask you this around those big people, because the president, in a summit at State House around anti-corruption, called you out specifically on the what we call the infamous list of 175.
Which to me is not infamous, but very famous and potent.
All right, and some of his CSs were suspended, of course never got their jobs back, off of what you said, these are the people that should be looked into. And he called you out and said, I did what you told me to do. Some of the people in the commission disagreed with that list, saying that it had been altered, so there have been a lot of politics. Do you now, in hindsight, regret having submitted that list to the president?
One, I don't regret. Number two, it wasn't correct. That in the hindsight, when I look back, that there are some people who disagreed that the list was changed. There's nothing changed. I participated in preparation of the list from the word go to the end. Nothing changed. It's still the same standing. Probably the levels of investigations were different. Some were at the point of conclusion, others were in the middle. And if you are a country that is looking at matters of governance and fighting ethics, ethical matters, the threshold globally or world over is much higher than what we are struggling with here in Kenya. And in other countries, you know that if somebody, it was only a year ago that a minister in UK was late in appearing at the House of Lords and resigns because he was late for 5 minutes. Here is where a minister appears, a state corporation director, who is mentioned in involving in a 6 billion scandal, 6 billion Kenya shilling scandal, or hundreds of millions of dollars, fights to stay around and still talk other languages. That's the only problem we have. We have nothing that we hide. All those records are there, speaking for themselves.
But if they're speaking for themselves, these people have been presented in court, but no one has been convicted.
Let me go there. The court, I do not control courts. They do not control court even as I leave them. Even the DPP does not control the courts. The courts is another set of, or another level of the justice system. We have expressed our own issues and frustrations. We have mentioned our issues, including this morning at the swearing in of my colleague who is taking over from me. And very clearly, that we stand together as the investigative and prosecutorial agencies, that we always do our work, and either the courts take too long to conclude. It was only this morning that the AG was talking about a case he started before he was appointed to judiciary 16 years ago, a case that started 26 years ago. We have no control. But our issue is to make sure that our evidence is always on the table and push all through, and the DPP or the prosecutor always firmly standing up and prosecuting cases.
So let me ask you this. To those who are feeling in this renewed, if you like, campaign against corruption, that EACC appears to have been sidelined, and that is the case because they have seen to have failed in the past, that DPP, DCI are taking center stage in dealing with the matters. They are pretty much taking all, if you like, the limelight in as far as this is concerned. Are you concerned with that sidelining, quote unquote?
One, I do not agree with sidelining. One, we do not wait for anybody's instruction to put us in the middle of anything to do the work. EACC is an independent commission, constitutional, running its affairs independently, only reporting to Parliament and the President where due and as provided for in law. But you can see that we may not have announced many of the things happening at the EACC. From that populist perspective, maybe we've been working hard and keeping the work tempo high.
So DPP is being populist?
No, I'm not talking about that. I'm only telling you that we have not given ourselves the announcements that you may have expected of us on a daily basis. We forward files to DPP. It was only 2 weeks ago that even in December, we forwarded 38 files to DPP. I know in the next 1 week, maybe similar or more numbers are going to the DPP. Okay. And we are not swayed, and we are not pulled from our track by the naysayers, by the detractive forces, by the negative comments. But I know the EACC will continue, and it will continue striving to progress as much as it's set out its agenda. And therefore, it doesn't arise whether we are put at the center or side. We are not sidelined by anybody because we are not part of running shows of that kind.
So let me ask you, are you aware that there was a proposal to strip the EACC of investigative powers? There's a miscellaneous bill around that.
And I know that it is being driven by the people who are already charged in court, the people whose cases are very mature and ripe at the EACC, and they know that they are on the line for them to appear in court and maybe even getting conviction. So that is it. But on our side, the Constitution stands for itself, Article 79.
Our colleague Sophia Onuna there speaking to the immediate former EACC CEO. Let's now review some of the highlights of Halake Wako during his 6-year tenure. He is a man who took office on January 21st, 2013. After being sworn in at the Supreme Court, he became the first CEO of the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission since EACC was established to replace the Kenya Anti-Corruption Commission in 2012. But in his 6 years, Halake Wako leaves with no prosecution successes, as he will celebrate no successes in terms of prosecution. This has led several observers to say the EACC had a weak fight against corruption during his tenure. Halake Wako has also been accused of shielding big shots in his tenure. In June 2018, documents filed in the Employment and Labor Relations Court by a former EACC investigator link Wako to letting off the hook people implicated in the 2015 National Youth Service scandal and interfering with several corruption cases by receiving kickbacks. These are still allegations at the Employment and Labor Relations Court. He is also alleged of clearing persons with questionable backgrounds to run for elections and hold public office, especially during the 2017 general elections. And many saw that as his undoing, clearing individuals with questionable backgrounds, some with fake academic papers, to run for elections. Now, what many perhaps will remember Halake Wako most was the launch of his Bible studies as a measure of fighting corruption in the country. It was a move that attracted a lot of flank and laughs from Kenyans. But away from that, during his tenure, many files of corruption cases taken to the DPP for prosecution were sent back on grounds they had been shoddily done and